The twin suns of Varthex Prime burned high in the sky. The ground was dry, cracked like old skin, and the air smelled of oil, dust, and sweat. Thousands of aliens filled the grand slave market, shouting, laughing, and waving their credits in. The air, it was auction day, the biggest in the galaxy. One by one, the cages opened. One by one, the slaves were sold. Strong ones were taken first. Fighters, workers, even children. Each one dragged away by a new master, some silent, some screaming, at the end of the row. In the smallest cage sat a thin, weak figure. His skin was gray and dull, his eyes almost lifeless. Chains hung from his arms, even though he had no strength. Left to fight, his name was Kale. He didn't know how long he had been there. Days, months, maybe years. Time had stopped mattering. A loud voice echoed across the market. "Final slave of the day," shouted the auctioneer, a fat red-skinned alien with sharp yellow eyes. Look at him. Healthy mind, good bones, and still breathing. The crowd laughed. One alien spat toward the cage. "That's trash, not a slave. Is it even alive?" Another mocked. "Not worth 10 credits. The auctioneer forced a smile, sweating. Opening bid 100 credits. No hands were raised. 50? He tried again. Nothing. 10? The silence was heavy now. Kale didn't care. Let them leave. Let them forget him. He had no reason to live anyway. The auctioneer cursed. "Fine. If no one wants him, he goes to the pit." The pit, a place where useless slaves were fed to beasts for sport. The crowd cheered at the idea, hungry for blood. But then, the cheering stopped. Footsteps echoed through the dust, slow and steady. A figure walked forward from the back, not tall, not loud, just calm, a human, wearing a black coat, his eyes hidden by dark lenses. "I'll take him," the man said in a soft voice. The auctioneer blinked. "You serious?" "Yes," the human replied. "I want that one." Laughter exploded from the crowd. A human buying trash? Only humans would pay for a corpse. Maybe he wants a pet. The auctioneer didn't care anymore. He grabbed the credits and opened the cage. Kale fell forward, hitting the ground with a weak thud. The human kneeled beside him and gently lifted him up. Kale's body flinched at the touch, expecting pain. But no pain came, only warmth, only calm hands. "Why?" Kale whispered. The human leaned close. "Because you're still alive," he said, "and that means something." He picked Kale up like a broken doll and walked away through the crowd. No one stopped him. No one cared. Back in his cage, Kale had been a ghost, but now, in the arms of this strange human, something deep inside him moved. A flicker, a spark, a question. Who is this man? Why would he buy someone so broken? What does he want from me? The answers would come later, but on that day, in the heart of a slave market, something impossible happened. A worthless slave was bought not for power, not for money, not for sport, but for something else, something rare in the galaxy. Hope. And so the galaxy kept spinning. The market continued, the crowd forgot. But Kale's story had just begun. Kale woke up to silence, real silence. No shouting, no chains, no smell of blood. Only a soft hum like the purr of the sleeping machine, and warmth. He was lying on something soft. Too soft for a slave. A bed, maybe, clean sheets. Dim lights, cool air touching his skin. His eyes blinked slowly. Where am I? Am I dead? The door slid open with a smooth hiss. Kale's body tensed. He expected pain. Commands, punishment. But instead, the human walked in calm as always. He carried a tray with warm food and a silver bottle of water. No weapons, no chains, just a simple smile. "You're awake," the human said. Kale tried to sit up but groaned in pain. The man helped him gently, placing pillows behind his back. Kale stared at him, confused. This wasn't normal. This wasn't slavery. "Eat," human said, placing the tray on Kale's lap. Kale hesitated. "Why are you feeding me?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Because you're hungry," the human replied without emotion. Kale looked down at the food. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, fresh, real. He ate slowly, watching the man from the corner of his eye. "What's your name?" the human asked. Kale chewed, swallowed, then whispered. "Kale." The human nodded. "I'm Aaron," he said, "and this ship is mine." Kale looked around. The walls were smooth and white. Strange lights moved along the edges. Glowing softly, everything felt too peaceful, too safe. "Where are you taking me?" Kale asked. "Nowhere," Aaron replied. "You're already there." Kale frowned. "I don't understand." "You will," Aaron said, standing up. "Rest now, we'll talk more later." He left the room without locking the door. Kale stared at the open doorway, free to move, but his legs didn't move. His mind screamed, "It's a trap, it's always a trap." But his heart whispered, "Maybe not this time." Hours passed. Kale woke again and again, always expecting change, always finding calm. The human returned every day, sometimes with food, sometimes just to talk. He never forced Kale to speak, never raised his voice. He only listened. One day, Kale asked, "Why did you buy me?" Aaron looked at him for a moment before answering. "You weren't meant to be there." Kale scoffed. "I was trash." "No," Aaron said softly. "You were forgotten." Kale didn't know how to reply. He had been told all his life that he was weak, useless, broken. But this human saw something else. And that made Kale feel something dangerous. Hope. Soon, Aaron showed Kale around the ship. It wasn't large, but it was fast, clean, and full of secrets. Each room was carefully built, no space wasted. Kale noticed old photos stuck to a control. Panel images of planets, stars, people with strange Earth smiles. "You're from Earth?" Kale asked one day. Aaron nodded. "Long ago. What happened?" Aaron paused, his face unreadable. "They stopped believing they were special," he said quietly. "But some of us never forgot." That night, Kale sat alone, thinking. He didn't trust Aaron yet, but he didn't fear him either. He had never felt that way before. The next morning, Aaron handed Kale a small metallic cube. "What is it?" Kale asked. "Training," Aaron replied. "If you want to get stronger, smarter, freer, you'll need to learn." Kale activated the cube, and it floated in the air, projecting symbols, maps, even simple puzzles. Aaron stood back and watched. He didn't help, didn't correct. He let Kale try, fail, try again, and Kale did. Every day, he trained. His body began to heal. His mind started to wake up. He looked at his reflection one night and barely recognized himself. Kale was still a long way from strong. But something inside had changed. He was no longer waiting for death. He was preparing for something. He just didn't know what. As he stared out the window into space, stars blinking in the distance, he whispered to himself, "Maybe I wasn't the last slave. Maybe I was the first survivor." Kale's first lesson didn't start with a weapon. It started with a question. "Do you know how to think for yourself?" Aaron asked, standing in a quiet room with nothing but a single glowing table. Kale blinked, unsure how to answer. "No master ever asked me to think," Kale replied slowly. "Then forget the word master," Aaron said. "You don't have one anymore." That moment changed something in Kale. Not his body, not his strength, but something deeper, his mind. A door opened, and for the first time he stepped through. The next few days were strange. Aaron didn't shout orders. He gave puzzles, strange tools, codes in forgotten languages. He watched Kale struggle, not to laugh, but to learn. He never rushed him, never judged him, just waited, silently. As Kale tried again and again, "Why teach me this?" Kale asked once, wiping sweat from his forehead. Aaron smiled faintly. "Because surviving is easy," he said. "But thinking, that's how you win." Each day, the training grew harder. From puzzles to hand-to-hand combat, from data hacking to zero-gravity movement. Kale's arms ached, his legs trembled. But something else started growing confidence. He began to ask questions. "Why does this ship respond to your voice? How did you unlock the Varthek security grid? Where did you learn to fly through asteroid fields blindfolded?" Aaron never gave full answers. He smiled and said, "Ask better questions." That was another lesson. Not everything needed to be given. Some things had to be earned. One evening, Cale stood alone in the training room, staring at the reflection of his own body in the glass. He was no longer skin and bones. He wasn't strong, not yet, but he was no longer weak. Suddenly, the room's lights dimmed. A hologram lit up the center of the room. It showed a galaxy map, thousands of blinking points, some green, most red. Cale stepped forward, eyes wide. "These are the known slave routes?" Aaron's voice came from behind him. Cale turned, shocked. "All of them?" Aaron nodded. "Every line, every buyer, every system that allows it." Cale's fists clenched. "How do you have this?" "I've been watching them for years," Aaron said. "Rescuing who I can." Cale stared at the map again. "So many stars, so many lives in chains. How many did you save?" he asked. "Not enough," Aaron replied. "That's why I need help." Cale turned to him, slowly understanding. "You're training me for something bigger." Aaron didn't answer. He simply handed Cale a small device. It buzzed to life. In his hand, a portable decoder. "Learn this," Aaron said. "You'll need it soon." That night, Cale couldn't sleep. His body was sore, his mind spinning. He stared at the ceiling of his quarters, thinking about every lesson, every scar, every broken moment in his past. He remembered how they laughed at him in the market, how they called him worthless. Now he was learning alien tech, martial arts, and tactics used by rebel fighters. It made no sense. But deep inside, Cale started to believe, not in Aaron, not in the mission, but in himself. One morning, during target training, Cale finally asked the question that had haunted him. "Why me?" Aaron didn't stop firing. He took another shot, clean and sharp, then replied, "Because no one else believed in you." Cale lowered his weapon. "That's not a reason." "It's the best reason," Aaron said, reloading. "The galaxy forgot you, Cale, but you were still breathing, still thinking. And the galaxy fears someone who rises after being broken." Cale didn't speak. He didn't need to. From that day forward, he trained not just for survival. He trained for something more, something bigger than revenge, bigger than freedom, a purpose. Aaron never called him a soldier. He called him a signal. "The others will hear it when the time comes," he said. "What others?" Cale asked. "You'll see," Aaron replied. And somewhere deep in the shadows of the galaxy, that signal was about to awaken. The training was almost complete. The chains were gone, the scars remained, but now they were his armor. Cale, once forgotten, was becoming something else, something the slave lords never expected. A threat, a spark, a storm in the making. The door opened. But it wasn't Aaron this time. Cale had expected his usual routine, another lesson, another device, another quiet meal with sharp words. But the figure in the doorway wasn't human. It had long silver skin, 4 eyes glowing softly, and a gentle, unreadable face. Cale stepped back, alarmed. The figure raised a hand peacefully. "I'm not here to harm," it said in a soft, almost musical voice. Cale's heart pounded. He had seen thousands of aliens in chains, but none walking free. Beside humans, then Aaron appeared behind the alien, calm as always. "It's time you met the others," he said. Cale's eyes narrowed. "Others?" Aaron smiled. "You didn't think you were the only one, did you?" Cale followed silently, still on edge. They walked down a hallway he had never entered. The lights changed color as they passed: blue, green, violet. Each door they passed had a mark, a language Cale didn't know. Finally, they stepped into a wide room. Cale froze. Inside were 7 beings, each from a different world. Each one unique, each one scarred, but all alive, alert, and most importantly free. A red-skinned female with metal arms nodded at him. A bird-like creature with 1 wing smiled shyly. A reptilian teen cleaned a strange-looking rifle while glancing up at him curiously. "This is Cale," Aaron said to the group. He was the last one in the Varthex market. A few heads turned sharply at that name. Pain and memory flashed. In their eyes, Kale's voice was low. You're all slaves too. The four-eyed alien from earlier nodded. We were more than that, he said. We were discarded. Thrown away, said the winged one. Forgotten, whispered another. Aaron stood at the center of them. You all survived what others didn't, he said. Now it's time you work together. Kale's mind spun. He'd been so focused on his own pain, his own past. He never imagined others like him had also been saved. Why? Kale asked again, almost to himself. Aaron answered as if he heard his thoughts. Because the galaxy is sick, he said. And it hides its sickness by calling people like you weak. But when the forgotten rise, when the broken stand, up they become something the powerful can't control. That day, the training changed. No more silent lessons, no more solo sessions. Now it was teamwork, trust. Learning how to move as one. Kale hated it at first. He didn't want to rely on anyone. Didn't want to feel weak again. But slowly that started to change. The red-skinned fighter, Zara, taught him combat stances from the war moons of tech. The bird-like Alo helped him master zero-G movement. Even the quiet reptilian necks taught him how to disarm traps with just a wire and focus. One night, Kale sat with them by a small engine core. No lights, no orders, just stories they shared. What had been done to them, what they had lost, what they still dreamed about. Kale didn't speak at first, but when he finally did, his voice shook. They laughed when no one bought me, he said. They called me worthless. Zara placed her metal hand on his shoulder. Then they were wrong, she said firmly. You made it out. It wasn't family, not yet. But it was the first time Kale felt something close to it. A few days later, Aaron gathered them all in the war room. The hologram map returned, now brighter, now louder. Dozens of blinking red dots, markets, mines, breeding camps, and prisons. Too many to stop alone, Aaron said. But we're not alone anymore. He placed a small device on the table, a signal beacon. We're not the only survivors, he said. There are others like you, hidden, hiding, waiting. Kale looked at the group, his voice stronger now. You want us to find them? Aaron nodded. Not just find them, he said. Free them. The mission was clear. The old Kale, the one in chains, would have said no. He would have run. But the new Kale, the Kale shaped by pain, training, and unexpected kindness, simply said, when do we start? And as the beacon sent its first silent message into the dark, across the stars, someone listened, and far away, in places still hidden by chains, a new kind of hope began to stir. The ship flew silently through the black. No lights, no signals, no broadcast. It was like a ghost slipping between stars. Inside, no one spoke. Only quiet breaths, steady hands, and eyes full of memory. Kale stood at the front window, staring at a planet he had never wanted to see again. Varthex Prime, the place where he was sold, the place where he was thrown aside like trash. Now he was coming back, but not as a slave. Aren stepped beside him. Are you ready? He asked. Kale didn't answer with words. He just nodded, because words were too small for what he felt. Behind them, the team checked their gear. Zara locked her armor into place. Alo sharpened a sonic blade with one wing. Nyx loaded charges into a backpack without blinking. They weren't soldiers. They weren't heroes. They were survivors with a plan. The plan was simple. Infiltrate the market, rescue the newest group of captives, and send a message so loud the galaxy would hear it without sound. Aaron handed Kale a small chip. This will shut down the outer security field, he said. Kale took it without hesitation. This time, he wasn't being told what to do. He knew what needed to be done. Hours later, the ship hovered above the dark side of Varthex. No lights below, only the dim outline of the slave market, built like a wound in the ground. They dropped fast and silent, landing near the old trader's gate. Kale crouched in the shadows, his fingers brushing the dirt. Same smell, same dust, but he wasn't the same. Zara tapped his shoulder. Ready, Commander? Kale gave her a half smile. Let's remind them what they forgot. The team split into pairs. Kale and Alo moved through the vents like whispers. Zara and Nyx took the cargo tunnels. Aaron stayed in orbit, guiding them through stolen frequencies. Kale reached the control room first. 2 guards sat laughing, unaware. Alo dropped from above, silent and fast. Kale moved like a shadow, disabling them without a sound. He plugged in the chip. The security field blinked, then vanished, across. The compound, hundreds of cages were now exposed, and the alarms stayed silent. Nyx's voice came through the comm. Explosives ready at the fuel cells. Zara added, outer gates unlocked. Kale replied, Stage 2. Go. Suddenly, a slave cage opened. Then another, and another. Confused captives stumbled out, blinking at the freedom they never expected. Kale stepped into the open. His voice calm but firm. You're free, but we need your help. Some backed away, afraid. Others stepped forward, anger in their eyes. They had nothing left to lose. The guards noticed too late. By the time the first alarm finally screamed, half the market was already falling apart. Zara moved like fire through the halls. Alo flew overhead, disabling turrets. Kale led the freed slaves through the chaos. Every corridor reminded him of pain. Now it smelled of smoke, rebellion, and revenge. And then he saw him, the auctioneer, still fat, still loud, still shouting orders, surrounded by guards. His eyes widened when he saw Kale walking through fire like a ghost from his past. You, the auctioneer hissed, you're supposed to be dead. Kale raised his voice for all to hear. I was, he said, but you forgot something. What's that? The alien spat. Kale's eyes burned. Humans don't throw people away. The auctioneer tried to run, but Kale didn't chase him. He didn't need to. The freed slaves surrounded the coward and dragged him to the center square. Justice was no longer a word, it was an action. Kale stood above the main platform where he was once sold. Now it was the stage for something new. He looked at the crowd scared, angry, free. We were all forgotten, he said, but we remember now. We know who we are. We're not slaves, we're survivors. And this galaxy is going to remember us. Then he gave the signal. Nyx triggered the charges. The main compound exploded in a blaze that lit the sky. From space, it looked like a wound finally closing. Aaron watched from the ship, silent but proud. Kale and the others returned to orbit. They were bruised, bleeding, tired, but they were no longer broken. The mission was complete, but the war had just begun, and across the stars, people still in chains looked up at the night sky and wondered if freedom was coming for them next. Asterisk, the stars outside the ship looked calm, but Kale was not. He sat alone in the navigation bay. The fire from Varthex Prime still fresh in his eyes. They had won, yes. They had freed hundreds, yes. But something didn't sit right. Something about Aaron. The man had no past. No stories, no weakness. He knew every trap before they walked into it. Every route, every market, every hidden door in a galaxy that forgot the names of its slaves. Kale couldn't stop thinking, how? So he searched, not with violence, not with questions, but with quiet fingers and late nights. He waited until Aaron was gone on a supply run, and he opened a panel in the command room he was never supposed to touch. Behind it was a sealed drive, encrypted in a language Kale didn't recognize, but he had trained for this. He had learned to read, to decode. To break past the walls of silence, it took him 6 hours, 6 silent, cold hours. When the screen finally flickered open, Kale's breath stopped. It wasn't a list of slaves. It was a record of names. People like Kale, Zara, Alo, Nyx, hundreds. More, and next to each name, a note. Saved, lost, or still searching. Then he saw something stranger, a folder marked, Terran Directive, Shadow Sparks. He opened it slowly. A video log played. The screen showed Aaron years younger, in full Earth military armor, standing on a broken alien world. We failed, the recorded Aaron said. Earth fell silent. They say the humans are gone, but they're wrong. We scattered, we hid, we watched, but now it's Time to return. Cale leaned closer. The Aaron he knew wasn't just a man. He was part of something old, something forgotten. A hidden piece of humanity sent to watch the stars rot. And when they rotted enough to act, another log played. We don't save slaves. Aaron's voice said, we find leaders. Because when they rise, they spark rebellions across systems. Cale's fingers trembled. It had never been just about kindness. It was a plan, and Cale was part of it. Footsteps echoed behind him. He turned, and there stood Aaron. Not angry, not surprised, just watching. I was going to tell you, Aaron said quietly. Cale stood up, heart pounding. You used me, he whispered. Aaron shook his head. No, he said. I chose you. Cale clenched his fists. Why? Aaron stepped forward, slow and calm. Because you survived the worst and still cared. Because you fought without hope. Because people will follow you when they've lost everything. Cale looked away. The truth cut deeper then. Any wound. I'm not your weapon, he muttered. Aaron didn't flinch. You're not, he said. You're the signal, and the galaxy is listening. There was silence between them. Not cold, but full of weight. Then Cale asked the question. Burning inside him, why now? Why bring humanity back now? Aaron walked to the window, staring out at the stars. Because the systems are collapsing, he said. Empires built on slavery are cracking. The rich are scared. The powerful are tired. And the forgotten are waking up. Cale stepped beside him. Then what are we? Aaron turned slowly. We're the match, he said. The spark to burn down the silence. That night, Cale didn't sleep. He stared at his own hands, the hands that once begged for food in a cage. Now they held tools, weapons, futures. He wasn't just a survivor. He was a symbol, not because Aaron made him one, but because he chose to be. In the dark halls of the ship, Cale passed Zara. She gave him a look serious and silent. We moving again soon? She asked. Cale nodded. Yeah, he said. We've got more cages to break. She smiled, not big, not wide, just enough. And across the galaxy, rumors began to spread. A name was whispered among slaves, rebels, and even quiet rulers. Not Aaron, not the Terran directive, but Cale, a ghost from the pits, now leading the storm. The galaxy didn't change in a single day, but it felt different now. Like the stars themselves were whispering a new name, not of a king or a conqueror, but of a slave who rose. His name was Cale. In the deep systems of the shadow zones, colonies once built on chains had gone silent. Markets once full of screams now stood empty. Guards looked over their shoulders. Masters feared the sound of footsteps in the dark. It began with sparks, a stolen freighter here, a chain broken there, then explosions, then disappearances, then stories of a ghost from Varthex, a leader who spoke with calm fire, a human ship that moved like wind and vanished like light, stories of survivors fighting back. Cale stood in the command center of a station once run by slavers. Now its walls carried symbols of the free. He wore no crown, no medals, only the same armor stitched with scars. Zara stood beside him, arms crossed. Nyx scanned maps with a steady eye. Alo perched above, watching ships land with freed families. And Aaron. He was gone, not dead, just disappeared. Left behind only a message. The signal worked, now it's yours. Cale had searched for him once, now he understood. Aaron was never meant to stay. He was the push. Cale was the wave, a council of rebels. From 5 systems arrived that day. They came with questions, demands, fear, and hope. They expected a speech, a command. Cale gave them none. He gave them a question. What kind of galaxy do you want your children to live in? The room fell quiet, because in a world built on power, a question was more dangerous than a gun. That night, Cale walked the decks of his ship. He passed fighters, farmers, former slaves, now soldiers with purpose. Each nodded, each smiled. Each one changed. He entered the observation room, where the stars felt close enough to touch. Alo followed him in. We got word from Sector 9. She said. Kale raised an eyebrow. Another outpost taken? Alo smiled. No, she said. Taken back. The words settled deep in Kale's chest. Taken back, that was the dream. Zara joined them moments later, tossing a broken slaver flag at his feet. Thought you'd like a souvenir, she said. With a grin, Kale stepped on it without looking. I prefer stories, he replied. Zara nodded. We're making good ones. A soft tone echoed across the bridge. Nix's voice came through the speakers. Transmission incoming, Kale. Walked over, tapped the panel. A child's voice came through, cracked, hopeful, afraid. Is this the ship that helps people? Kale closed his eyes for a moment, then answered, Yes, we heard. You save people, the voice said. We don't have weapons, but we want to be free. Kale looked at his crew. No one needed to speak. The ship shifted course. Within seconds, Kale whispered under his breath, We're coming. As the ship shot through space, light wrapping around it like a promise, a message spread through the dark, not a battle cry, not a warning, just a name, Kale, the slave who wasn't bought, the one they left behind, the spark they couldn't kill. Now the fire they couldn't stop, and somewhere, deep in forgotten corners of the stars, a new generation would be born not into chains, but into freedom, because one human believed in someone the galaxy threw away, and that someone chose to rise, not as a weapon, not as a king, but as a voice, a symbol, a leader, a reminder, that even in the darkest cage, a heartbeat can become a storm.